Good afternoon and welcome to Saturday Sports Special, our weekly program, which is a weekend edition of the TalkSports. And on this weekend's program is more or less an open discussion on a number of issues we'll be talking about. And, certainly it will be interesting to hear what some folks have to say on a number of issues that have been making the rounds of recent, and we will be discussing some of these things, and including the whole issue of whether or not professional sports is sustainable in the Caribbean. Albeit there is cricket and there is the professional league, which is heavily subsidized by the Cricket West Indies, I should say, and then there's also the CPL, and when you look at the sponsors regarding the CPL, most of the sponsors are outside of the Caribbean. Most of the major sponsors of the CPL, there are some sponsors, but most of those major sponsors are actually outside of the Caribbean region. So whether or not, the Caribbean itself, and you're looking at the bigger nations like Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago, Bahamas, Barbados, in terms of economies, and whether or not they do have the sort of economies that can sustain a vibrant professional league in their respective countries, as well as in the Caribbean itself. And, it's something that has been bantering around. I know my friend Ray Roberts has a different view to that, because, for example, the plans to start a professional league in Jamaica in terms of netball, a netball professional league in Jamaica, and whether or not the market is there a market for that sort of league. And then you have to look at the sport itself, sports such as netball and basketball, whether or not, they are in a position to be, really sustainable. Good afternoon to you, Donna, and good afternoon to you. And I want to say good afternoon to Christina Buckles, our good friend. Christina was on our program earlier this year, the daughter of Hazel and Regis, now Buckles. Christina is 12 years, 12. She's 12 today. And, happy birthday to Christina, our dear friend, because Christina certainly was on our program, and we have to at least shout out to those who were part of our program, certainly. And, let's say good afternoon to our good friend, Sister Glenys Roberts. Good afternoon to you, wherever you are. Good afternoon to you, and nice checking in on us. Certainly, always a pleasure having Sister Glenys is also one who has been on our program countless times, as netball chief, and she hasn't really given up on sports at netball, and it's always a pleasure having her. Let me say good afternoon to my good friend and co-host, and as we say, partner in crime, Rudian, who is joining us as usual.
How you doing, man? It's good to see you.
Good afternoon to you, Rudian, and what's cooking on your side?
And I could extend and say good afternoon to Ms. Glenys. It's good to see she's on. Yeah. Wonderful woman she is, and she have done great things for netball, not only in Grenada, but I believe in the region. So
she says, no, I have not and will not, meaning that she will not give up on sports. She hasn't given up on sports as yet.
Definitely.
And that's the thing about it, Rudy, and we have some people who, despite what, they may not be directly involved,
but
they still have the passion.
They still have the fire. They still have the fire, the passion.
Yeah.
They are involved in some ways, somehow. Maybe not directly with any ministry itself in terms of sports, but they are involved in their community.
Well, yeah,
So
not necessarily, as you say, not necessarily in ministry, not necessarily in national associations.
National,
They may be, but as you say, in their communities, and even if they're not, they're still willing to assist. They're still willing to give advice, you know, and things like that, and you know, or participate. You know,
they're always ready to when the call come upon them. They most of them is ready, but when the call come upon them to definitely, you know, to give back, you know, because in the end it's about giving back. That's really what it is. It's about giving back, right?
Yeah, she called it the Ministry of Service. The Ministry of Service. You know, Rudian, I was referring to earlier about the whole issue, and I'm not sure if our friend Ray Roberts will be able to join us, because I know he told me that he's actually they're preparing for a clinic. I think it's a table tennis clinic next week. So this weekend they're doing all the preparations. In fact, this weekend is a lot of preparation for things happening, because we have the table tennis have one, and then chess. The playing of chess.
Yes, I remember you mentioning that.
Right, there's an expert who's getting ready to travel to Grenada in the next few days. Really, I have a little recording of him. I'll bring it in a while. But I was talking about whether or not the Caribbean region is ready to sustain professional sports, and I say that in the context of, we have been hearing a lot about professional sports, football, etc., etc. Well, except for cricket, which is heavily subsidized by the Cricket West Indies, right? They call it the professional league. Whether or not you will be able to see, let's say, for example, Jamaica is looking to start a professional league in the sport of netball. But in terms of netball and basketball and these other sports, whether or not the Caribbean region is ready to sustain that. And I say that in the context of, for example, we have the CPL, which is the Caribbean Premier League in cricket. But when you look at the sponsors, and I know that's something you like to talk about regarding the sponsors in the Caribbean, most of the sponsors are actually non-Caribbean. They are based outside of the Caribbean, right? We do have some major sponsors like the hotels, etc., etc. I think even the airline, Caribbean Airlines, is a major sponsor. So understandably, but in terms of the major sponsors, and I know you like to take a little bite at.
Definitely.
You know, the shoe companies, you know, whether it's Nike and Adidas and Puma, etc.
I mean, for me, when you go there, even dealing with sponsors within the Caribbean, I would like to hear from those organizers, what is the pitch? I would like to hear to them, who do they go to? Someone said to me, we talk about Grace. You know, it's a big company.
Yeah,
it's big.
Grace Foods, right?
Yeah, Grace Foods.
Yeah.
But if Grace Foods have what are we going to say? They say $3 billion Jamaican dollars. How much is that a year? I'm just giving an example, right?
Yeah.
So we also got to look at certain areas too, because I mean, I believe in the Caribbean our dollar is the highest, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe the Cayman Islands, the US.
In terms of the value you're talking
about, in terms of
right?
value wise, right?
Even though Cayman Islands
and Bahamas and those places, US dollars and so forth, right?
Yeah, 1 for 1.
Yeah. So we kind of, you know, in a position like that, when you really think about it. So sometimes we want to say that, like I had conversations, like, what about Grace? And what about Digicel? And what about, you know, all those other things, right?
Just to give a little plug, talking about Grace. I'm here in Charlotte, and I could find a Grace product in Charlotte. You know, Grace is in Charlotte, North Carolina. So it's global.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's global.
And there's a lot of things that we can go on. There is a lot of in the Caribbean. There's oil companies that we can target, right? But again, I would like to know the pitch of who is their people and sponsor, what the pitch look like, who are they targeting, and that's what I would like to.
But then on the other hand, the sponsors want value for money. So,
Yeah.
you know, you mentioned an oil company, and I know you're just using it as an example.
An example, yeah, yeah.
So let's use an oil company for an example. They may want to know what it is in it for them, how they can, even though, for example, National Gas in Trinidad and Tobago was one time a major sponsor of the Carifta Games for a number of years. They sponsored, even though, by the way, and even though they were still a sponsor, even though they did not have a presence in certain islands, right? But they was a sponsor for the Carifta Games. So in this day and age where, the dollars and cents really count, the sponsors may want to know, what's in it for them, and whether or not, like, they go to a certain market, whether or not, what are the restrictions in terms of the competition, all these sort of things. Let's say, for example, let's say a major company in Grenada or some other island that is in competition with Grace, for example, and they decide to sponsor on a bigger scale some regional event or whatever. And then that event has to take place in Jamaica. In Jamaica, Grace product are probably, if you understand where I'm coming from, right? It's king, right? The Grace products they're king. How it is that the sponsor can feel comfortable that they can openly advertise in a market where their competitor is the king, So
But
these are the sort of things that they may be thinking
here's
about.
one of the major difference between, I would say, European and Canadian, American, not American. One of the big difference is tax purposes.
Mm-hmm.
When big companies give, they get it back because they write it off under tax.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so you find more of that happening because it's like giving to charity. So you find more of that happening in the North American companies, big companies, because they write it off into tax, as long as there's a way to get some sort of tax receipt or something that reflect that. So that makes a big difference with there and in the Caribbean. And I mean, you go to the European countries, how do they get it? How do they get those sponsors? And it could be the same thing, right? So there is a lot of little things that we don't know, and I think that's what I would like to know. How do you go about looking for sponsor? What is your pitch? How do you do it? Do you have somebody specifically is targeting that you bring in a 3-man team for sponsors? That's their job. They eat, sleep, drink. That's it.
Yeah.
Sponsorship. And that's what I would like to know. Not for every sport, but for any major games that we may look to host. Because, like I said, there's a lot into it in terms of hosting a big international meet in the Caribbean. We do it with cricket. How do they do it? Cricket does it. And people come in and look at cricket. Foreigners come in. Yes, I understand. Cricket could be 3-4 days compared to like track and field that can be 1 day. We can do it with soccer. Have a Caribbean championship.
Yeah, but
and I'm just saying it's not easy. It's easy to say it, but
that's what I'm saying, because some of these associations and talking about confederations, they have been speaking about these things for a number of years. There must be a reason why it isn't possible. I don't know if they can't use the Major League Soccer, MLS in the US example of how they started, and over a period of time how it was able to
to grow because
and
it's really big now compared to
what I'm trying to say. When you compare MLS to probably 5-10 years ago,
it was not nowhere close.
nowhere close to what it
No,
is now.
yeah,
Now it is a major. I mean, just about every game is on
yeah. And they
television.
got big,
You
and they
know,
got big name soccer players is
yeah.
coming in and
So
play and
right,
make a big difference. So they
and,
have to be getting something from somewhere.
and when
Yeah.
you look at it too, it's not a big sport in the US,
It's
right?
not.
When you
No.
compare it to baseball and American football, the NFL, and even
And basketball.
basketball,
Those
you
three
know,
sports
yeah,
alone. Yeah.
yeah. When you
Yeah.
compare that, it's
Yeah.
not a major yet for all. It's, I mean, it's big business in the US now. You know, look the
And
following.
even going back to that, when we talk about you earlier on mentioned about can professional athletes sustain? Um, Look at soccer now. The women actually won in the US that they will be even paid.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could talk closer to home in Canada.
Yeah, yeah,
What,
yeah.
what's happening in Canada with
That
the
no, no,
Olympics?
definitely.
Yeah. Let me get some comments there because Glennis is saying our nations have to see sports as a profession rather than just players. It's a mind shift. Well, yeah, and that's what I think in the concept of the professional league, right? It's doable. For example, the OESS region has had a successful tournament for over 20 years, especially with netball, for example, the OECS netball tournament. It has been going year after year.
Yeah, yeah.
So if that is happening, it's all about putting something in place. You understand? Where they started, where now they're giving a little prize money and things like that. So it's just as she says, it's doable. Just putting things in place.
But it's doable on what level? Even though we have track and field, we have World Juniors. Even though it's identified as an amateur to one sense, they have world-class performance and they don't get dollars and cents like going to a world championships. There is no money in it for them, right? So yes, we have to look at it as professional, but we also got to know on what level, what grade are we looking at it at, right?
Yeah.
So that's also a thing because netball, Grenada have a national netball team with junior athletes coming up can get and make a part of that team. Then guess what? We have to identify that sport to be a professional so that athletes can be make it to professional. So if the sport don't lead to professionals, we cannot identify it as a professional sport in that specific country.
And that's the point you're making. The mindset has to change. We have to look at the sport as a profession, you know. And if we start looking at the sport as a profession, then we might get people to start thinking that way. Okay. Roger, good afternoon to you. I'm at a wedding now in a church, so I'm peeping at the program today. Lord forgive me. Yes, Lord will forgive you. we pray for the Lord to forgive you, Roger. All right. So Glennis says we need to stop chopping and changing, even if we build on what's there. Right. So yeah. So
because and she's right, because if we had continue building on what we have, let's go to the games that you brought in. Let's use this for an example. If that was continue on
the OECS championship,
that game that you brought in, how far would we have been now?
Oh well, yeah. Oh,
that's what I'm saying, right? We break down certain things like intercall used to be one of the biggest things, right? And the changes coming to it, and they're not building it; they're just changing building.
Right, and then rising to the occasion because, as you say, there are changes, and you need to rise to it, right?
Yeah.
It's like how it was, and adopting as well, because, for example, while most countries shut down during the pandemic, look how the Jamaicans were able to still stage the boys and girls champs through the pandemic and had a very successful beat. So it's all about, as I say, rising to the occasion and also being able to adapt to certain things. Okay.
But look at another thing again.
It says resources and partnerships are so essential. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. But look at basketball. We have players, Grenadian, that plays basketball and either in the European League,
right?
And they soon probably might be in the NBA. How much is basketball big in Grenada? How much are they invested into basketball? That as they should.
Well, and
In
it comes
St.
back to
John's,
the point.
and in St. Andrews, they're building on it. They're getting back
Right.
into it. St. John's is more than St. Andrews, based
Yeah.
on what I've seen.
Right.
And they're doing a phenomenal job. Praises to them for what they are doing. They are doing a great job. But
Again,
how much are they putting into it to keep it going and build it?
Again, we go back to the point, the mindset.
Yeah.
If the player, if they start thinking as basketball as a profession, then it may change. Just as how some of the athletes looking at Kirani James and others, and not just being in the public domain, not just being in the spotlight, but seeing it as a profession.
Yeah.
If they start thinking that way,
thinking like that,
then
remember the only thing we had, I would see it as a professional, even for me growing up, was cricket. And we have the Junior Murray. We seeing it and we get to see him on TV. And when I see that, I want to be Junior Murray. You understand? I want to, and that's what the things comes in, right? Yeah. And we need to.
Richard Pierre is saying, good afternoon to you, Richard. You can only build on a solid foundation. Investment in sports must be made at the youth and school levels in order to realize successful and professional sporting careers. It is that simple. Unless you start at a very young age, at a foundation age, and that's what we basically try to say, letting them know that at an early stage, and not just letting them know, but making the investment, at that level, the youth and the school level, that's the only way you will be able to get people start thinking, in that.
Listen, we certainly have to, or hoping that they can hear us on the mind changing.
Oh, yeah.
Listen, in this part of the world, and we come too far. We have the social media, we have everything, but some part of us using Grenada, we are not moving forward. We're just stuck. We're moving forward in so much different things, right? Mm-hmm. In this part of the world, since that child couldn't walk, he have a hockey stick in his hand or he kicking a soccer ball, and that's a fact. And the amount of young people playing soccer is bigger than hockey. Young people playing soccer is bigger than hockey because they're getting them involved, and then you see hockey start coming up. Hockey might be in Canada, but soccer might be a bigger sport in Canada than hockey because of the number of kids getting involved. Yeah. And what age do the kids start in Grenada? Yes, we have a lot going. I'm not taking away from what they're doing, but then it come back to when somebody said, what do we have in place when they get hurt? Do we have the guidelines in place for those things? Do we have the medical doctors and so forth, and the physio in there for when injury happens? If we don't have that, then the sport will just die from us because people will get injured and that's it.
Mm-hmm. There is a famous, Billie Jean King, the Hall of Fame 39-time Grand Slam tennis champion and founder of Women's Tennis Association, once said, and let me quote here, sports teaches you character. It teaches you to play by the rules. It teaches you to know what it feels like to win and lose. It teaches you about life. And I think sometimes it's important for us to teach our kids and let them understand about the whole character
concept, building, the whole building, the whole what sport is about.
What sport is about. It's not just about winning and losing. It teaches you about winning. It teaches you about losing. It also teaches you about life. It's all about character building.
But it's funny you say that because when I started back coaching about 2 months ago, and I have a few athletes, and I said that's what we're doing. I'm going back to day one with you guys. Everything I'm doing is scratch. I'm not teaching them how to run. They know how to run, but I'm teaching them the technique from scratch. Mm-hmm. So we're going to build them. There's a lot of talking about the sports and about the good and the bad about it and the rules because they don't know the rules. They just love running. and they love jumping, but they don't know the rules. So it's basic, and truly that quote you put in just fall right in places with what I'm doing, without not even knowing that quote. To tell you the truth.
All right. Do you agree with that? We are still hinged on a profession as being lawyer, doctor, etc. I want to agree with. I mean, that's the concept. The concept is that there is a mindset. We go back again to changing the mindset. The mindset is that when it comes to a profession, when you talk about a career, it has to be either a lawyer, a doctor, etc., etc. They don't see sports as a career.
Don't see sports. Yeah,
they don't see sports as a career.
Again, I look at it as, is that us in the Caribbean? Because the parents from some places, but let me use Canada as an example, they see dollars and cents. They put everything into the kid so that they will make it in. But remember, in hockey, a kid could make it to professional at 18.
But listen, that is why you see these parents out with their kids
all over
the U.S., North America in particular.
Yeah,
weekends in, weekend out.
Yeah,
rain, snow, whatever it is, they are with them because they consider that as an investment. They understand. You're correct. In the Caribbean, probably except for one or two sports, the swimming, the tennis, etc., you don't see the parents out as, in some instances, yes, you may see them at a track and field meet because of the excitement, the entertainment aspect of it. I'm laughing at something Glennis is talking about, unfair comparison, she says. But the fact is, let me laugh because she said, guys, unfair comparison. When you look at it, is that they see the investment, they see that as an investment, and they know what can happen in terms of the output later on.
I respect what Glennis is saying, but at the same time, if we think that way, we're going to be that way. If we think that there's an unfair comparison, we're going to be that way. We're always going to be that way and say, because of how you are. There are coaches, schools are coming to the Caribbean and looking for athletes. There are schools that are going to Europe and looking for athletes. So we have to develop them. If you say we want them to be better on a higher level, professional level, or get an education free, there are schools leaving the United States and coming, because of the numbers of schools in the United States, coming to the Caribbean to find athletes. So what we have to do is develop them with that mindset, with the rules of the sport. You want to be a professional soccer from Grenada, move up, you have to know the rules in Europe. From then, if you want to go to the Olympics, you have to know the rules of the Olympics. From then, we are doing in high school, we are doing 2 false start rule, with the understanding IAAF is 1 false start rule.
Yeah.
But we look at it in the sense where a lot of these kids in high school don't be a part of a club. So you put them up there for 1 false start and they're done. There goes their whole season, So we look at it in a way and saying we have to teach them not only about the track, but those who know. When you get to the club side of it, or the summer side of it, is a 1 false start rule. But we have to teach them it is a one false start rule, but we are just giving you 2 false, two, because of the circumstances. You have to know the rules of the sport if you want to get there.
Yeah.
There's some things you can't do. Some things you're not supposed to do. They have to know these things. My high school coach said to me, he said, if I ever go out and there's people smoking, leave. And on several occasions, I went out. And this is something he talks about quite a lot when he's doing a class. And I leave. When I went to the Canadian Junior Championship, making my Canadian team for the first time, I was drug tested. If I stick around when people smoking weed and I stay there, it could have been a secondhand smoking in my system that will show up. You make sacrifice. You have to know the rules. That certain things can be a hindrance to you. So yes, from home, we have to teach them the rules if they want to get there. So we cannot teach them Grenada rules for the American system or for a world-class system. We have to teach them the world-class system implementing the Grenada rules. So
Hazel says we also need to expose our youths at an early age. I remember going to Penn Relays and was determined to run fast and get a scholarship because I saw the benefits. Certainly that's these are the sort of things that will inspire and encourage. Okay. As Serena Williams, if I may go back to my quotes again, luck has nothing to do with it. Because I have spent many, many hours, countless hours on the court working for my one moment in time, not knowing when it will come. And it's also has to do with what you were just saying in terms of the one false start, for example. Could you imagine you preparing for the Olympics every 4 years? Your one moment in time is at the Olympics. And
there goes that
with one false start. Okay.
And look at Elaine yesterday.
And even
we go back to both.
Even Sharika was a bit lucky because
she was very close.
She was very close, you know. So luckily it was an invitational exhibition, Diamond League exhibition. If it was World Championship or
But then here's the difference with that. Let me show, just to teach someone else, just to say there is no prize money for her.
But
there is nothing in it for her in that sense.
Because although they may have been
in that sense, she'll get paid to go there. But you also get paid for performance. There's nothing extra for her because of that.
Right. She would have gotten an appearance fee because she showed up and she started the race. Well, when I say started, she was in the starters block at the time. So appearance fee is okay, but in terms of performance, no.
Performance.
So that's and that's the point I'm making to your one moment in time, let me just get a little piece of, because I had this chat with Mr. Leoncho Garcia. He's actually from Spain, and he will be visiting Grenada as the Grenada Chess Federation. They're trying to get chess. I mean, it's a mind game, and it's as a matter of fact, he's actually a commentator, and one will wonder how it is someone can do radio commentary. How one can do radio commentary for a chess player, chess, for the playing of chess as a sport. And it's kind of interesting, Let me see if I can get a piece of Mr. Leoncho Garcia and what he plans to do when he visits Grenada in the next few days. More and more people are getting involved in the playing of chess. Why do you think it's becoming a very attractive sport now?
Well, right now, chess is in fashion all over the world for two reasons. The lockdown, chess is the only sport you can play through the internet. So during the lockdown, a lot of people in many different countries started to play chess. And secondly, the big success, the big popularity of the series Queen's Gambit in Netflix. This is one of the most popular series in the history of Netflix. But besides of that, there is a very solid base. As I said, we are not talking about just any other activity. We are talking about an activity which is supported by solid scientific evidence.
Mm-hmm. And we're seeing that as you said, even the school children, it's becoming very popular among school children. And we have, speaking about scientific evidence, it has also shown that it helps in stimulating, as they say, stimulating the brain, stimulating knowledge, things like that. Why do you think it's important for parents to get their young kids involved in chess at a very early age?
Well, there is a very old principle: learning by playing and playing by learning. When the children think that they are just playing, but actually they are learning very important things by playing, this kind of teaching is especially effective. So parents normally become very happy about that, because they see, just to mention one skill that is very much developed through chess, which is concentration. They see that their kids are able to be much more concentrated. In nowadays, this is very important. I mean, with the social networks and this kind of very fast world where we are living, to have the skill to be very concentrate on what you are doing is really very important. Flexible thinking is another very important skill which is developed by chess. The world has changed in the last 25 years as much as, or even more than in any other 25-year period in the history of humankind. And it's going to change even more in the next 25 years. So your capacity to adapt yourself to a reality which is changing very fast is one of the most important skills today at the 21st century. When the parents see all that with their children, of course, they become very happy about chess as an educational tool.
Mm-hmm. And not just educational tool, it's a very cheap sport to play as well. It's very cheap compared to others, right?
Exactly. Suppose that you want to promote music as an educational tool. Of course, I agree that music is also a very powerful educational tool, but it is much more expensive than chess, because you need to buy the musical instruments and so on. A chessboard, a chess pieces set is very cheap. It's a universal game. The World Chess Federation has right now 199 countries affiliated. Grenada is one of the last ones coming into the FIDE, the World Chess Federation. So chess is really universal. You can play chess wherever you are going in the world. And it's also very equalitarian. I mean, when playing chess, everybody is equal. You can be poor or rich. You can be white or black. You can be very old or very young. You can be man or woman. But everybody is the same when playing chess.
As they say, sometimes it's yep.
That last statement was so right. There's one level playing field for. There is no gender, race, no age differential on the chess, and that is something that I knew. A lot of little things he said I did not know, but that's one that I knew of from listening to other people in the past.
Yeah, no, in terms of restrictions, no restrictions. As a matter of fact, he was even saying that a chess game can be played between, you can have elderly folk versus, a young kid.
Person.
Young person. You could have a man versus a woman. It's because it's just about the mind,
It's just about the mind,
and the brains and things like that. So, and it was a very stimulating discussion with Mr.
No, it's good, and it's really good to see that we are on that list. Grenada is on that list, and there's so many countries in the world, and we are on that list. So
albeit 199. I thought we could have been 200, rocked it off to 200. But it's nice to know that at least we are on that list.
On that list. No, definitely.
Let me get another comment here. It's coming from Clev Depredine. We spend so much time shifting blame instead of shouldering abilities. Little time is left. The revolution that is needed to drastically upset the what is to what is needed. That requires willpower more than wealth, shoving instead of back, fearlessness instead of fear in identifying the root or roots of the problem problems to move forward. And I think, the whole issue of the shifting blame instead of shouldering responsibilities, I think that is well known, documented, that we spend so much time, blaming and these sort of things rather than taking up the responsibility and moving forward.
And moving forward, like I said, I'm gonna make a comment, but I'm gonna use this one. In Canada, Canadian Championship, whoever is gonna host it get 2 years to host it. So the first year, 2 years to host it back to back.
Right.
Meaning that if you didn't do a good of a job, you have a second chance. You go back to the drawing board. You go back to the drawing board and you fix it. And it's something I said before. Caribstar should have a 6-man team trying to figure out how can we build, or where is lacking, and that we can build on that. That's my opinion. You look at Caribstar game, there is some events that had 2 people.
Yeah.
How can't we build on those areas where is lacking, and let us go out in Grenada, go around Grenada, finding athletes who we can get to build in this position. And you have to go back on the drawing board. And if you quit, then nothing is going to get done. If you feel like you're always right, nothing is going to get done. You have to have a team. It can't be a one-man team. I know we're talking about sports, but this is, again, my humble opinion. The organization of this year's carnival was terrible. My opinion. Just the way they go about it. It was really bad. They try something. So I hope they go back on the drawing board, look at what happened, look where it didn't work, and put it back, get things back in place. That's just how I see. Nothing wrong with trying anything, but if it don't work, let us go back to the drawing board. And I think we haven't done that because everybody feels that the way I've seen it is that I'm right, you're wrong. Look at where we are now in soccer. We have a girls' team. We haven't had that in my time. You understand? We have girls' team who's doing well. And congratulations, I saw St. Vincent girls' team is under 17, just won a championship, a league somewhere, and that was very good. We have a girls' team that just came second, I think. They were second in where they just came. That's very good. That we are building. But what are we trying to build now? Are we trying to get our girls' team to the Olympics? Is that the goal?
Well,
that's what I'm saying,
right? And I'm saying, you need to have a plan.
Yeah, have a plan.
And if that is the plan, if the plan is ultimately for them to X, Y, Z, so be it.
So be it. You have to find the resources, find the investment, find the funding, find whatever you need to find, and build towards that.
Because most times you have the talent,
Have the talent, but you don't have a plan.
But you don't have a plan.
You don't have a plan.
You're not making the right investment. You understand? You're not making the right investment,
And then, and as you can see, for them being home, because of how small we are, they have to travel to get good games. Otherwise, they have to play against the boys.
Well,
that's the only thing that left, right?
You see,
so they have to travel. So you have to think about it that we need to have the funding to travel.
And that's the issue. No, compare that to. Well, I don't want Glennis to bang us again and say
compared to Jamaica,
unfair comparison. But no, I was saying that it's a matter of having the resources, and then even if you have the resources, smartly making the investments. So we see, for example, the US will ensure that they prepare their team by hosting international friendlies. So they will bring a team from Sweden, Brazil, where these sort of things. If they can't go, they will bring the team. It's having the resources and making the investment, because what they're doing, they're preparing their girls or their boys, depending on, for the tournament.
Well, Canada have a friendly with Argentina, the men's team, and the men's team is at the World Cup. They're having a friendly with Argentina. They're not playing Argentina in the pool, but they're having a friendly with them. And I mean, let me go back to something. I believe in Grenada, we should have a national championship, meaning that every parish should have you call it a national netball team. every parish should have a netball team representing the parish, and we should have a parish team and have a national championship netball year after year after year, and then from that you select players.
Well, they do have the national championship, but it's more is a club championship, right?
Yeah.
They do have, most of those associations have these tournaments, but they're club championships. I know what you're speaking of. You're speaking of parish competition. Now, when it comes to like independence, for example, they do have parish competitions. Like they will have the cricket parish competition.
Cricket do,
yes. Will have
soccer do.
One or two other sports. They will have parish competition. I know under the sports policy, the national sports policy, the part of it was with the establishment of the National Sports Council and the parish sports councils as well, is to have parish tournaments, whether it's football, netball, basketball, apart from the clubs that have been organized through the national associations. So it's not anything, interfering with the GFA, for example, right? Yeah. GFA has its club championship.
Yeah.
But at the parish level, you have a parish team, football team, a parish, whatever, netball team, whatever.
And depends on how big is the parish. Like St. George's, for example, could have 2 teams.
Well, if you have an inter-parish tournament, it may not be wise to have 2 teams because you want to get the best out of it,
Yeah.
But if whatever you have in, make sure that Carriacou and PD Martinique represent.
Is a part of it, definitely.
Yeah, part of it. Clef Deputy said, intercall, for example, should be noted on our athletics roster the day after the last, instead of guessing when. This will give the schools a heads up for their meets and adequate preparation for the Crifter Games. Now, I think it was last week, Clef was asking us about the dates for intercall. And that is the issue, Rudian. Now, we should not be guessing. Now, we know, for example, that the Crifter Games schedule for the weekend, the Easter weekend, year after year, Easter weekend.
Yeah.
So what we may be guessing is probably which country hosted it, but we know it is scheduled for that. Albeit we know it's in the Bahamas, right? And they had a thing where they were doing it 2 years in advance, and then it used to be north and south, meaning it goes to the Bahamas, then it means that the next year country in the south will host it. Now, they had this problem because of the pandemic and countries being unable to host. Then you had the problem with Bermuda, then you had the problem with Guyana, etc., etc. I think it's kind of up and down now. But it used to be north, south, north, south. So it goes to the north. For the next year, it has to be a country in the south. Did for it, and that's how I remember how Grenada was,
end up getting it.
Yeah. But the fact is, and the point he's making is that we should know that the intercall championships are scheduled for
this date, this time.
Well, it may not be the same date because
but the same time
period. The period.
If it's the second week. If it's the second week in April, it may not be the second time.
It may not be the second week in April because.
No, I'm just using that for an example.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. Right, but it has to be the period. Whether it's 2 weeks before Easter, 2 weeks before Easter, so it may fall in March. It may fall early April. These sort of things like that. So,
for me out here. Our high school championship is always the first weekend of July. It depends on how it falls. It could be the 5th, 6th, 7th, or it could be 1, 2, 3. Depends on how it goes, right? But it's always the first weekend of July. Period. That's when it is.
So whatever it is, the planning will be the first weekend in July.
First weekend in July. That's when it is.
Right, and that's a concept I think Clef is trying to get in, that we should know. And they should set it in such a way that we have an idea that, okay, we can do our own thing, and we say, okay, is it the the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or the Tuesday, whatever, because whether it's 2 days, 3 days, all these sort of things like that. So, and we have had some issues where the teachers had their issues, and then pandemic, all sort of things. So by now, there should have been something definitive.
Second stone.
Yeah, that okay. Intercall 2023 back. These are the dates for Intercall 23. As a matter of fact, I think I'll take it as my, because I think it was raised last week on last week's program. Someone, I think, made mention of something, but
someone asked the question, and I think the principal from a former school did give.
We still were not.
They don't have a concrete time.
Yeah, so I will. I think I will try to follow up on that. And
even going back, I mean, look at interesting how me and you were sharing information with Budapest. Budapest full schedule is out for next year, August. Full, like what day is what?
What day?
Full schedule, which is exactly what we're talking about. We know, on that day this is what's happening at this time. They have this full thing down pack 1 year ahead. So there's no mix up. Everybody know what is what. Everybody know what's going on. 1 year in advance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and talking about Budapest, we'll come to that just to spend a minute on it. Glenn said, Baski, in all fairness, Intercall, remember teachers were on work to rule, but the schedule was there previously. Certainly, yes,
it was.
Yeah, that was something that affected that. Speaking about Budapest 2023, and it crossed my mind that we had something we wanted to just touch briefly on. It's high standards for 2023. 100 meters, you have to be running sub 10, at least a sub 10. I mean, how many athletes in the Caribbean region could be getting into the world championships? Because you have to be running 10 seconds or below to get into the world championships. 10 seconds.
But also there's a rule.
Yeah.
There's also rule, and that rule is they have to take certain amount of athletes.
Well, yeah, they have the quota, right? But then, and that's why
what you're saying.
Yeah, and that's why it was important for participation in the NACAC championships. Because remember, through the NACAC championship,
get an automatic bid.
You got an automatic bid, right? You got the automatic berth to, even if your time is not that, by virtue of winning certain events, even if you didn't make the standard, you still have that opportunity to get
to go in for next year.
Next year. So that's why it was important for some of our athletes to participate.
My understanding with that is they are going more on a point standard, not a time standard. Meaning that someone can come and run at 10:199 and never run again until they're ready for World Championship. You don't work that way. Because
they have to be consistent,
because they could run it one time and get ranked 50 in the world. Because they run fast, but they could rank based on points.
But remember, like the relay events, for example, the ranking for the relay.
Yeah.
You have to keep, because a team can come and bounce you out. Yeah,
knock you out.
And things like that. Yeah. Except that you finish in the top
12.
Top 12 at the world relays. Yeah. Which means the top 8 and probably 4 from the semifinals, right?
Yeah.
4 from the semifinals.
4 from the semifinals. Yeah.
So you can finish last in the world relays.
In a fast heat.
And you
can still make it. I still make world championship. Yeah.
Still make world championships. Yeah.
Still make world championship. So
it's a lot.
I think that's where our target should be, like as we are talking about.
But it's looking at it, it's very challenging for our athletes in the Caribbean in particular. And it means therefore that they have a lot of work to do, because it's no easy feat running, 10 seconds. And I mean, you'll find a lot of kids.
But the women is 11. The women is 11:08, which is also very fast.
That's what I'm saying. And especially the sprints. We know for the 400 meters, for example, the guys.
400 is 45 flat.
Yeah,
so
and I mean
that should be doable. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. I mean, average kid in college is running 44 point. Okay,
yeah,
44 point, 44.8, 44 this, that, and the other. So
but the women's 800,
that
158 is calling for. Yeah,
I recall when 2 minutes. I remember when Nisha Bernard Thomas, for example, was competing.
Yeah, I remember 205.
2
I
2 minutes
remember
and you
205.
qualify. Now you had to
So
be running sub 2 minutes to get into to qualify. Lots and lots of changes, and
but I
again,
think they're doing it in the sense where, like I said, is on a point system where somebody just come out from nowhere, run a fast time, and they just never maintain running again or never really do it. So the points aspect is not there for them.
okay,
Because, like I said, you can run a fast time, but you could be ranking number 50 in the world and they're taking 40. So they're going based on the point system, not time. So that's the difference of what most people have to get. They are not going on the timing. They're going on the points. It's based on a point. So let's see what happens. But that's it's interesting, really interesting. But are they is that a standard moving forward? Is that every other country now coming up now going to say, okay, if Budapest can do it, then the men for the next World Championship, whoever is hosting will be 995. Like is that a trend moving forward? So
sometimes you get the technical team at the World Athletics to probably review those things and then come up with certain things, because I'm certain that there may be some when it comes
and they're hosting, so they can do what they want.
Participation, right? And things like that. So,
they're hosting.
No, but not. I don't think because you're the host, it's not the host.
But the Olympic standard's still the same. The Olympic standard doesn't change.
Hold on, but it's not the host that's setting the standards. It's the World Athletics. World Athletics, they are the ones that setting the standard. They have the technical team. The host has nothing to do with the actual standard itself. The host just hosting. The World Athletics, they have a technical team. You can go up on the website and look at the technical aspect of it, and you can see who are the people involved in the technical, what it is they sometimes
look at,
information as to what they look at, and things like that. So, but we getting ready to wrap up. But I want to do from you, if Mike didn't put something there, I didn't know. Mike Batiste says Grenada can make top 12 in the world relay in the men's 4x4 if we start mobilizing now. And fully agree, Mike. Fully agree. And I think it's something we discussed, when we see the quality of athletes that we have now and the guys who are willing to, and Mike is part of this group where we have these athletes and discussing and things like that. So Grenada can easily, I mean, we made the point, and we have been discussing it back and forth in that group, that you look at Trinidad and Tobago at the Commonwealth Games. Trinidad won the 4x4, right? Look at the team. Tell me how many guys on that team
on the 400
on the 400, apart from Cedinho, right? Albeit he trains in Grenada.
And I always go back. I use what do I always use?
But they won the 4x4. And when you look at it, Grenada had guys that easily could have been on that medal podium there when you look at it.
Yeah. Well, we could also have two teams. We could also have a mixed relay. I believe we have. I believe we can get two girls that can come up in. But like I always use, name me one Japanese in the 100-meter finals. But in the
4x1 and the 4x1 and
name me an Italian or Chinese.
But look at the Dominican Republic.
And they're coming up strong. They have two girls that is just, they're going to have a really good 4x4 team and a mixed relay team. They're looking to hit the podium again.
They don't have any men as quality
400 meters
into the 4x4 relays. They're into it. Bahamas again, apart even without Stephen Gardner.
Yeah.
And they're still there. They're still jamming without their top man. Final point, Roger Duncan is saying the point system means that athletes will need more events to run in, and that
they do.
That's a great opportunity for countries hosting championships. Yes.
Yeah.
Then it means that
more meets.
Yeah,
more quality meets.
Yeah, but then if our athletes don't get the opportunity, and we have to strike a line there, because we have athletes who have the opportunity and who don't have the opportunity, meaning that, okay, Kirani James, for example, is an elite athlete. So he can be invited. He can participate probably, in any meet if he wants, any, whatever it is. What's about the others, the average athlete, the average Joe, who may not be able to get a lane in Europe or in some other meet? And that's where we have to ensure that they also get that opportunity in terms of.
Then you look at the college system, where you could also get points on the college system. It also come back now, are they going to be running too much on the college system, or are they going to be not running enough?
But that's where it means that the associations need to start. The association needs to start planning, because if you have X amount of athletes on the college circuit, it means that these athletes will have commitments for their colleges. But if you don't have a plan and communicating with the athletes and their coaches, etc.,
and the respectable schools,
then you have problems.
You do have problems, because
you do have
if you don't have a relationship. Let me use one example. My athlete is going to switch schools and going to University of Georgia. If you look at the list of the triple jump from the NACA, she's on the list, but her school said no. Her school said no, she cannot go. She was going to be on a Sunday, but the school said no. So we respect that and we accept it, and we said, okay, you're not going. That's a school decision, because you choose to the school. To be a part of the school, and the school said no. They say your season is done and it's done. We're not continuing on, and that was that.
Yeah. So therefore, it's important for our national association to start reaching out to the athletes, and not a system of where they believe the athletes should get in touch with them.
No. Yeah.
I mean, yes, if they get in touch with you, so be it. But it's also your duty to reach out to the athletes. You should know where your athletes are. You should have some system in place where you should be able to figure out who are athletes out there. Where are they?
How can I get in touch with them?
You also in a position and has some level of, you have some leverage to reach out to the schools. Here is the National Association, and we are reaching out to you. We are letting you know that our athletes X, Y, Z, we are anticipating participation in X, this sort of thing. It may or it may not work, but the fact is there is communication.
There's communication, right? And again, I think
that is sometimes what the schools need. That communication.
They don't need that. It's a bit of respect too, right?
A bit of respect. Communicate with us. Let us know who are your athletes, what are your intentions, and we can see how we can work with that.
Yeah, but I'm not trying to throw any water or anything. My athlete is from St. Vincent, and the Olympics organization of St. Vincent do stay in touch with both myself and her. When they send an email, it's CC to me, as well as it goes to her. How is she doing? How is school going? How she's, Yes, St. Vincent don't have a lot of athletes on this. I think she might be the one girl just finished from Arkansas, the 800-meter girl. So she might be the only one, unless they have another one coming up, or maybe two. So it's not much athletes for them to, to email out and to go after, but at least they are looking out. They are asking questions. She don't live in St. Vincent, right? So she actually lives in Canada, but she go to school in the US. But they still reach out. They have our information. They pick up the phone. They call me. Kid Joseph calls me all the time. How is she doing? How is everything going? Actually, she was hurt a little bit, and he had to take my word for she go to the Commonwealth Games. He actually called me and said, "I'm taking your word." She came 7th at the Commonwealth Games. So, so I'm just saying that we have to be able to reach out for our athletes, and it's a bit that's to them. They will say that the athletes would say that they care. They're reaching out to me, they care. So I'm gonna have to put some hard work in. So that's a part of it too.
All right. Well, It's a pleasure, always a pleasure. That 1 hour went so fast, indeed.
Just before you go, you ask a question in the beginning. How do the athletes sustain? And I guess it's saying financially, how do they sustain in professional sport? Is that the question? That's what
the question was really about sustaining professional sports in the Caribbean, not so much the athletes themselves, but how do we sustain, whether it's a netball league or a basketball league, like having a professional netball league in the Caribbean. Jamaica, for example, is about to start a professional netball league in Jamaica, right? But whether that is sustainable, because it may start now and then in a year, 2 years, we may hear, well, because remember, if it's a professional league, it means you're paying the players to play, right? How sustainable and whether or not we have the depth in terms of economies in the Caribbean, to sustain those things. Because you'll have to have the sponsors, all these sort of things. You have to have all the things in place to ensure that you can have a successful league, but at the same time a sustainable league, meaning that the players and the entire staff of the team have to be paid. All the necessary, the logistics have to be taken care of, the facilities, so many things have to be put in place to have a successful league. Do we in the Caribbean, Jamaica is speaking about it, but outside of Jamaica, where else in the Caribbean can you have this sort of professional league and sustainable league? Netball, basketball, football, but I can't say track and field, because track and field is more or less like a one-day event per se. So let me look at sports that can play over a series, a series of matches, whether it's football. We can look at football, basketball, netball, volleyball, these sort of things like that. So
here's my question. Can we have let's use Grenada. Can we have a professional league in Grenada without prize money to individual athletes? Would you still consider that as being professional?
If you prize money?
If there is no prize money for individual, there is no paying individual a salary. You put it this way.
No, it's not. It can be professional, because professional when we use the word professional, we look at it as more or less as a career. Okay, that's what like for example in Trinidad, even though they call it a semi-professional league, but the players, they bring players from other countries. Grenada, for example, is one. And they pay them to play, right? I don't know why they call it semi-professional league, because that's all they're doing. They're playing football. They're training and playing football, right? Yeah. But I know there's a league in Antigua, and things like that. So football again. And then there was once semi-pro by the St. Andrews Football League a lot of years ago with Ari Walker, and things like that. So you have to be paid, and if you are paid, and I'm talking about not just the players, because you have the coach, you have
everyone,
everyone, you have the staff being paid everything. You consider that as a professional league, a professional outfit, because it means that the guys are coming in to train in the morning or whether in the afternoon or whatever it is, and all they're doing is playing football or playing netball or playing whatever it is. In the case of, for example, the professional league, the cricket sponsored by Cricket West Indies, the guys are paid and they are actually on contract, right? Remember, they're on contract. They have this contract that's they sign and things like that. So, and that's all they're doing. They have to prepare themselves when they're not playing cricket or the cricket is not being played. They have to keep themselves fit and all sort of things because they're on contract. They have what they call a retainer contract, right? So yeah, there are a couple of things that Glennis put up there just before we go. Let me just read it. She says, Basky, all need to have a convo or symposium with the new minister. I assume it's Minister of Sports. The information that you and your co-hosts have is not privy to the administrators at home. I understand what you said. Time went really quickly indeed. Good going, guys. Blessings. And we need to just ask Serena for a start. Don't forget we need, she says, don't forget we need upgraded facilities, certainly. And guys, let's start a GoFundMe for an indoor facility in Grenada. I have the drawing. Well, I know Naka Joseph is one who is really pushing for that as well, because up to, I think, a day or two ago, he sent me something. I think Dominica is getting ready to open a facility. And it's something we spoke about in terms of an indoor facility that
I saw
that will be multi-purpose, a multi-purpose indoor facility.
Yeah. I saw a drawing,
or whatever, you know.
Yeah, I saw a drawing for a indoor facility somewhere, and I wonder if that's not what Jamaica is doing. I wonder if it's not Jamaica happened to start it in. It was an indoor.
No, Jamaica has an indoor facility. Jamaica has one already
for both basketball and netball.
Jamaica has an
indoor. Jamaica
has a gymnasium.
Because I know I've seen
there's an indoor facility right next to the National Stadium in Jamaica. Yeah. Barbados also has the Weldy Gymnasium, which is indoor.
Trinidad don't have any?
Yeah, Trinidad has. And I mean, Trinidad even has an indoor velodrome. They have a velodrome. Okay. Yeah. So, you know, but the context is a multi-purpose indoor facility where you can play netball, basketball, volleyball, you know, these, well, by now, the sports in particular should have been knocking heads together. If I was on one of these national associations, I call in my sister associations and say, hey, netball, basketball, volleyball, whoever it is again, I say, guys, let's sit down. Let's discuss this. It's in our interest, right? It's not about netball looking for a facility and then basketball hoping to piggyback on it. Let's come together and let's discuss how we can go forward with that. Let's have a plan. You know, let's make representation to the authorities, whoever it is, in terms of how it can benefit our sports. A home for our sports. Just as our football has a home, athletics have a home, cricket has a home, how can we have a home? And it's not that basketball wants one for itself, and we're not in a situation where we could just have a basketball one and a foot and one for volleyball. No, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They have to come together.
You have to be together.
These guys, yeah, they have to come together and discuss
that. And again, you have to be in unity. You have to be in oneness. Yeah,
that's me. That's you, and that's Glennis talking individually. What we need, people with the mind, the backbone. We need these sort of administrators who thinking outside of the box. You know. Thank you guys for being part of the program. I really appreciate. Rudian, as always. By the way,
it was a pleasure, my man.
How is Toronto this weekend?
It's gonna be a hot weekend.
Hot weekend.
Yeah, they say it's gonna be a good weekend for people who want to travel out of town because the weather is really good. We did have some bad weather for the past few days. I actually, for the first time, see a boat in the middle of the road because that's how much water we had sometime last week, and I never seen it. I seen it in the U.S. where people have I see a canoe in the middle of the road. And I said, my goodness, you know, but it wasn't nothing close to what Dallas had. The Dallas had water. That was, you know, an ocean in the middle of the road. But the weather is really good, and it's not bad.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate Glennis and Clev and Roger, and Mike, Matisse, and all others who were part of the program. Hazel, please send our regards to Christina, our young guest, the youngest guest on our program. She's only 12, I think, today, you know. Thank you very much for being part of the program. and look forward to being with you come next weekend. Rudian, my time is winding up. It's just my last, hopefully my last program will be next weekend here. The last program here, I should say.
Charlotte.
In Charlotte, yeah. My last program here will be next weekend. So thanks very much, everyone, for being part of the program, and I look forward to seeing you come next Wednesday. Until then, I want you to have a very, very pleasant weekend. Thank you very much, one and all. Thank you.
A good one, my man.
Okay then, right.